This is the Content Marketing Podcast. Episode number 213, Is Organic Reach Dead? And what can we do about it? Hello and welcome to the Content Marketing Podcast. This is the show where we help you grow your tribe and your bottom line through insanely good content. I'm your host, Rachel Parker of Resonance Content Marketing, and today is February 9th, 2017. Hello, or as we say in Texas, howdy, or howdy y'all, if you want to be real proper. And thank you for joining us for today's episode of the Content Marketing Podcast. Just a reminder, this podcast is available on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play Music. So if you like what you hear, please feel free to click on over and subscribe. Also, if you want to get handy content marketing tips delivered to your inbox every Friday morning, I invite you to subscribe to our Tip of the Week emails. So every Friday, I send out a quick tip, and that also contains links to the blog posts and the podcast, of course, and the weekly video. So to grab your spot on our list, go to resonancetips.com. Would love to have you in our little community. Okay, before we get started, I want to give a shout out to my friend Matthias in Switzerland. Matthias is the host of the podcast Marketing auf dem Arbeitsweg, also known as Marketing on the Way to Work. Great title, Matthias. And last week, he sent me a very nice email about an episode that he published that was inspired by my episode on Carvana that we did a couple of weeks ago, where we talked about how Carvana is the ultimate testimony to the power of content marketing. And he put together a very nice episode based on, inspired by our episode on Carvana. So, Matthias, vielen Dank für das Shoutout. I believe shoutout is the same in English and German. Thank you so much. Happy to have you as part of our community. Okay, last week we talked about some new research on millennials and their social media habits. Very important. We Gen Xers and Boomers have got to stop ignoring millennials and recognize their purchase power and start paying real serious attention to what they are doing online. So if you happen to miss that episode, feel free to check it out on iTunes or our many outposts or via the RSS feed. Today we are talking about organic reach on social media. Is it really dead? And if so, how do we deal with it? But first, it's time to check in with our news feed for this week's rundown of news you can use. Some news out of Snapchat, kicking off today's news feed. Snapchat has rolled out snap codes to open URLs within the app. So let me explain what I mean by that. Remember QR codes? Yeah, me neither. No, really. QR codes were quite the thing a few years ago. Haven't seen them in years. Well, Snapchat has come up with its own version of the QR code. Now, if you are not versed in all things Snapchat, let me back up a little further. Every account on Snapchat has a snap code. And you may have seen these little yellow graphic. It looks like a little yellow square with a white ghost in the middle and little dots arranged around it. Well, those are just not just random dots. That is actually a code that, when snapped from within the app, takes you to the person or brand's profile so that you can connect with them. Well, according to a recent article on Marketing Land, now we can create snap codes for website URLs so that when someone snaps it, actually is on Snapchat, and they take a picture of it, they snap it, a prompt will pop up if they ask if they want to open the link, much like when you are in Facebook on your mobile and you open a link, it will say, do you want to open this link? And then they click OK and it opens it up. Now, this feature is currently available only on iOS, but I'm sure it will be coming to Android very soon. To create your snap code, go to the in-app settings and select snap codes. And then you'll just type in your destination URL, and Snapchat will create your snap code and save the image in your phone's camera roll. And according to this article, this image can be embedded on a website. It can be posted to Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. It can be painted on a billboard or, and quoting here, tattooed on your body, if you really want to go there. I'm not endorsing, just quoting the article here. And Snapchat will also provide analytics for URL snap code that has been scanned at least 100 times. So in learning about this, I went ahead and created a created a snap code for the landing page for my book. So if you want to see how it works, you can go to the blog post for this episode and snap the image and see how this works. Now, how would we use this? It's one thing to have the capability, but it's okay, what do we do with it? I could imagine, for example, if you are at a trade show and your audience happens to be very, very heavy Snapchat users, if they're in that demographic, it might be cool to put up a snap code at your booth and have that take them to a destination where they might, sign up for an ebook or engage with you in some way. That could be interesting. And I don't know. We'll see if these snap codes take off. I know Snapchat is still kind of in its early stages as far as widespread adoption goes. But, what the heck? Jump in, create a snap code, see how it works, see how you can use it. Okay, that's really the only news item we had this week. It was a pretty quiet week in the content marketing universe. Our content hit of the week. Oh, this was a really good post. The title is How to Use Jargon for Good, Not Evil in Your Content and Marketing. This is a post by Derek Slater on the Marketing Profs blog. So pick up any Content Marketing 101 book and you'll probably find the rule, avoid using jargon. And with good reason. We want to be speaking to our audience, speaking their language. And if we start using a bunch of internal jargon that only we and our peeps understand, then that kind of creates a barrier. But as Derek points out in this post, jargon can actually be your friend. It all depends on your audience. So if you're targeting a highly specialized group, jargon can actually be your friend, and he tells you why. So for example, I do a lot of work in the oil and gas industry. Well, if we are trying to reach investors who already have a certain vocabulary, then of course, we want to use that vocabulary that they're familiar with. It establishes authority. It shows them that we know what they're doing, and it also helps with search. They might be using those jargon terms in search. So a very interesting article, and I will, of course, provide the link in the blog post for this episode. Again, that title is How to Use Jargon for Good, Not Evil in Your Content and Marketing by Derek Slater on the Marketing Profs blog. Okay, that's it for this week's update. If you stumble across something you think might be of interest to your fellow content marketers, please tweet it to me at @RachelParker so that we can share. Now it's time for this week's Spotlight segment. Is organic reach dead? And what can we do about it? I was just over at Facebook and also on LinkedIn checking in on my pages there. Now, I don't do that often, and when I do, I don't stay very long because it is damn depressing, people. It is damn depressing, pardon my French. 6 impressions, 8 impressions, 1 person saw this post, 0 people saw this post, maybe on a good day 12 people saw this post. And that's what I'm dealing with, and that's what I've been dealing with, and so that's what we're all dealing with when it comes to organic reach from our social media pages. And, I look at this and I wonder, well, shoot, I put some time and effort into putting these posts out there. Is it even worth it? So I started looking around at what other people are saying about this issue, about the decline of organic reach, or should we say the crash of organic reach? Let's be real here. And it got me to thinking about something that Joe Pulizzi said as part of his post, 5 Content Marketing Trends to Watch in 2017. And this is something he published back in December. Now, Joe Pulizzi is the godfather of our industry. Okay, when he talks, I know I listen, and most people I know listen as well. Well, one of the trends that he talked about is, and I quote, backlash against social media platforms. Joe says, quote, more and more social media influencers, as well as brands leveraging social media, are frustrated with YouTube, Facebook, and more, and their ongoing algorithm changes. And he cites the story of this YouTube superstar really named PewDiePie. And this is a guy, I think he's in Sweden, and has a huge following on his YouTube channel where he posts videos of himself playing video games and his commentary. And I only know who he is because South Park did an episode about PewDiePie. So when Joe mentioned him, I was like, I know who that is. That's the guy on South Park. Anyway, and he was just expressing his frustration with his videos not getting in front of his audience. Even the people who have subscribed are not seeing those updates. And then kind of using that as a conversation to take it on to a bigger level. So I want to give you another quote from Joe from this post on Trends to Watch in 2017. Again, this is Joe talking. Quote, "As I travel the globe talking to enterprises about this issue, frustration is at the highest level I've seen. In 2017, I believe two things will happen." This is Joe talking again. "There will be more advertising on social media platforms and less organic publishing. The case can be made that a brand does not need to publish organic content on any social platform and instead instead can opt for an owned platform, otherwise known as our websites, plus paid promotion to create and grow an audience. Of course, social media sharing can happen, but the brand doesn't need to be present on that platform for sharing to happen." Those are strong words, folks, from the godfather of social media. I mean, what a turn of events. Joe is saying we need not be publishing organic content at all. We don't need to be sharing stuff we find on Marketing Profs and from Neil Patel and other sources. We don't even need to bother with that anymore. We can focus on our own websites, do promoted posts on our social platforms, and that will be all we really need to do. I mean, if that doesn't rock your boat, I don't know what does, okay? And if that's not enough, check out this next post I'm talking about here. I just read a post on, of all things, a hospitality site where the writer Alicia Whalen, she is a social media strategist. She shared an experience where she was attending a conference and she was attending a presentation by the travel lead at Facebook, a lady named Kelly Fraley Covado. So this is a person at Facebook who is in charge of their travel business and maintaining good advertiser relationships with the travel industry. So I'm quoting here from, this is getting confusing. This is from Alicia Whalen's article where she talks about this Facebook person's presentation. And Alicia says, during her presentation, Covado illustrated the new ad types available to travel marketers and showed results from some successful travel brands that have already adopted Facebook as an advertising partner. So no surprise here, she's talking about advertising for the travel industry, all's going well, blah, blah, blah. Quoting here again, then she dropped the bomb, one that I am sure will happen at other small conferences and meetings with CMOs and agencies over the coming months. There is zero, quoting the speaker here, there is zero organic reach. We are now a media platform. Again, I'm going to say that again. This is this is the travel lead for Facebook saying, quote, there is zero organic reach. We are now a media platform. And according to Alicia, she followed it up with, don't bother with any posts to your pages if they are not driving a call to action and are part of a paid advertising campaign. Wow. OM frickin' G here. This is huge. This is huge, folks. And I really, part of the reason I love doing this podcast is I learn so much when I'm researching information to share with you. I was like, wow, I had no idea that this was coming from people who actually work at Facebook. So, it's a dire situation out there. Some people are calling this development just the death of organic reach. Others call it Facebook Zero. Others call it the reach apocalypse. And not just on Facebook. Most of the conversation, yes, has to do with Facebook. I'm going to take a sip of my coffee here. Just pardon me, just a second. It's early here, so I got to share my coffee. Okay, I'm back. So most of the conversation is around Facebook, but it's going on all over the place. I'm seeing similar results on my LinkedIn page, and and really, so how did this happen? really, organic reach became a victim of social media's own success. There are so many brands and so many pages competing for that coveted spot in our news feeds that Facebook cannot simply can't allocate all those spaces. For an example, speaking for myself as just a regular old Joe Blow Facebook user, I follow probably about 100 pages. I mean, I'm pretty generous. People ask me to follow their page. I follow their page. And if I saw every single post that was posted by those pages, I would never see anything from my friends and family, which is why we go to Facebook to begin with. So, Facebook is walking a very tedious tightrope here, trying to, give everybody their space on that news feed. As I said, most of it revolves around Facebook, but as I mentioned, we are seeing similarly dismal results on LinkedIn and on other sites as well. So what does this mean for us in our mission as content marketers? I mean, goodness, the whole thing is we want to be generous and share content that improves people's lives. Remember the 70-20-10 rule? When we talked about when you post on social media, 70% of that content has to come from other sources. We need to build our thought leadership by showing people we are well informed and sharing information that is actually useful. And then 20% can be your own content, and then 10% can be actually promoting your products and services. Well, in this new universe that we're looking at, we're not going to pay to promote someone else's content. I'm sorry, Neil Patel, I love you to death, but I am not going to pay to promote a link to your blog posts. I'm not going to do it. My dollars are scarce, and if I'm going to spend dollars, I'm going to use them to promote my own content. So, maybe Joe Polizzi and Kelly Cavato are right. Maybe it is time to stop viewing social media as engagement platforms and start seeing them as places to advertise, not necessarily our own products and service 100% of the time, but our content. Is it a place where we're going to advertise our blog posts and our webinars and the other content that we're creating? And I leave that question open, folks. I am struggling to find a path just as you are. I'm looking at my own social media practice and saying, okay, do I need to change what I'm doing here? Do I need to forget about sharing Neil Patel and marketing profs and all that stuff that's getting 4 and 6 impressions and focus on doing some strategic paid promotion for my own content? I'm really looking at that, and I don't have any definitive answers, but I cannot leave you hanging. So here are some things that we can do to adapt to this brand new brave new world, scary new world, whatever you want to call it, on our social platform. The first thing we can do is show some love to your number one owned platform, and that is your website. Okay, amp up your blog content. And I don't mean volume. I don't mean quantity. We talked a little bit a couple of weeks ago about quality, about focusing on those longer, more in-depth blog posts. The great thing about your website is it is all yours. It doesn't depend on someone else's algorithm. If someone goes to your site, they see your content, period. If someone goes there, you're not competing with anybody else. They are on your own territory. That is your turf. And we need to make sure that the content that we put up there is truly spectacular. That is truly, to quote my own tagline, insanely good, because that's going to be our hub. It's so funny. Remember, God, I sound like an old lady. Remember back in the day when, really, in the early days of social media, I remember a lot of small businesses were saying, oh, this is great. We can have Facebook pages where we put up our hours and talk about our products and services. Heck, we don't need a website. We're just going to have a Facebook page. Wow, how times have changed, right? Okay, so that's the first thing we can do. Really, really focus, show a lot of love to our websites. The second thing we can do is remember email. Okay, email, yeah, it seems old school. Our grandparents get email. It's unhip. It's not cool. But guess what? It is still one of the most effective ways of reaching our audiences. Now, of course, we can't grow an audience via email. That's why we need social. That's why we need our lead generation activities to get people on that list. Your list is gold, okay? And we need to focus on serving that list well and growing it. And show some love to the people who have signed up. Send them some appreciation for just being on your list. Offer them outstanding content delivered in a sleek and streamlined format. And that's something else that's going on with email. This is another topic for another day. But have you noticed that emails that we're getting from publishers have gotten a lot simpler? There are fewer images. They're more streamlined. They're not as designy. I mean, some are really, really, really plain, and there's a reason for that, and we will talk about that. That's a good topic for next week. Let's talk about email formats next week. I'll make a note. Okay. The third thing we can do is, yes, experiment with paid posts if you have not already. And I can tell you all about my experiences, but you really have to find what works for you and your audience. I will tell you off the bat, Facebook is pretty reasonable in terms of what it costs you to just kind of get out there and see how it works. LinkedIn, you're going to be paying more because with LinkedIn, we have more of a B2B audience. So if you're in the B2B field, that's where you need to be. And it's a higher quality audience. We have more CEOs. We have more C-suite people on LinkedIn. We have them on Facebook too, but it's a different environment. But experiment, figure out what works. The fourth thing, and this is something that a lot of us miss, get your team involved because on LinkedIn and on Facebook, now Twitter and Snapchat, they're pretty treat brands and people pretty equally. But I know on Facebook and LinkedIn, much higher priority is given to posts from personal profiles than from pages. I mean, it's not even close. I get so much more engagement from my personal LinkedIn profile than I ever could hope to from my page. So get your team involved. Encourage them to share your stuff from their personal profile. Say, hey, here's a great webinar that's coming up that I'm really excited about. Now, of course, it has to be honest. You know, you can't require them to share your posts. My last corporate job, I actually worked for an energy company here in Houston, and they were saying, "Oh, post on Facebook about this great electricity plan." I'm like, "No, I'm not gonna get out there on Facebook and tell my friends, hey, you've got to sign up for this new electricity plan. It's really cool." But make sure that your team is involved, that when they do see something that really inspires them and excites them, to share it with their communities. That's a great way to amplify what you've got going on. And then the fifth and final tip for adjusting to the death of organic reach is always measure and adjust. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in the tip of the week segment. So that's all I got, folks, on the question of whether organic reach is dead. I think the consensus seems to be yes. And we need to figure out how we're going to adapt to social networks transforming into media companies. And with media companies, the name of the game is pay to play. What can we do? I don't make the rules, folks. I just report. So, again, nature of the beast. The good news is we are smart, we are agile, and we will survive this reach apocalypse or Facebook zero or whatever you want to call it. Okay, that's my take on organic reach in 2017. If you have any questions and want to add to the conversation, or if you disagree, if you want to say, hey, Rachel, you're talking bunk, lady. We are having great results with organic reach, and here's what we're doing. I would love to hear from you. And the best way to reach me is to hit me up on Twitter at @RachParker, or you can always reach me through the website, resonancecontent.com. Now it's time for our content marketing tip of the week. As we look at the death of organic reach and the repercussions, it really is one more testimony to the importance of experimenting, measuring, and adapting. As content marketers, we function in a world that is constantly changing. I mean, every day there is some new development that we need to adapt to. And something that worked well even just a few months ago may be all but worthless now. We talk a lot about strategy, about planning our annual strategy, but really, it's a month-to-month thing, and we always talk about the importance of being ready, willing, and able to adapt. Now, I need this advice as much as anybody because my personality, once I start something, I stick with it. Now, that can be a good thing. I mean, obviously, we're on episode 213 here, so it can be an asset, but it can be a detriment because sometimes this characteristic finds me beating the proverbial dead horse longer and more often than I care to. So, the bottom line is this. I can sit here and spout advice at you all day long, and I hope you find some of it helpful. But in the end, it comes down to what works for you, what works for your brand, and what resonates, there's that word again, with your audience. So keep an eye on your results. Look at what is working now and what's not. Look at what you're not doing that might have some potential. Like we said, maybe those paid posts, there's something to it. And yes, that's going to involve some experimenting, and experiments sometimes fail. Deal with it. Okay. We did this, we tried this. It did not work. We put time and energy into it. It didn't work. And I love one of a very famous quote from Thomas Edison. He had conducted about 5,000 experiments trying to invent the what is now the traditional light bulb, the Edison light bulb. And a reporter asked him about this. He said, "What do you feel about having failed 5,000 times?" And Edison, from what I understand, he was a salty beast. He said, "Young man, I have not failed at all. I've successfully found 5,000 ways it does not work." So as content marketers, we need to have that spirit of experimentation. We need to find out what works for us, what worked for our audiences. And in this day of reach-pocalypse, we have to agree that we can't serve that audience if they can't see us, if they're not even seeing what we're doing. So test, measure, experiment, and come up with the best strategy for your brand, your audience, right here, right now. Okay, campers, that is it for me today. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Content Marketing Podcast. If you like what you've heard, feel free to subscribe on iTunes or Google Play Music or via our RSS feed. And if you really like what you've heard, please leave us a quick review on iTunes. I would so appreciate it. Also, my new book, The Content Marketing Coach, Everything You Need to Get in the Game and Win, is now available in book and Kindle format on Amazon. To learn more about the book and to download a free chapter, visit contentmarketingcoachbook.com. As always, I like to leave you with a quote, and today's comes from Albert Einstein. He once said, quote, "If you can't explain it to a 6-year-old, you don't know it yourself," unquote. I'm going to say that again. If you can't explain it to a 6-year-old, you don't know it yourself. Good advice for us in the communications world. Again, this is Rachel Parker with Resonance Content Marketing. Thank you again for listening, and we will see you again next week. Take care.